Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Retail Tales. As you know, I'm Saurabh and I'm the host of this podcast. If you're a returning listener, you already know what this podcast is all about. But if this is the first time you're tuning in, this is a podcast exclusively focused on discussing all things AI across the retail value chain. On the show today, I have someone who can easily be titled the most fierce leader in fashion retail world. Actually, a fashion retail rock star. She's a force to be reckoned with. She's not just a seasoned executive, but a true visionary who has guided CEOs of Fortune 500 companies through their most critical decisions in the past. She brings over 25 years of experience to the table, and she's held key roles at organizations like Deloitte, Google, Booz Allen Hamilton, and even co-founded a tech incubator. And she's a former lawyer. An epitome of servant leadership, would go to the end of the world to protect her people, her clan. But most importantly, she's a lifelong friend and a mentor to me. Please join me as I welcome Karla Martin to the show. Karla, welcome to the show. Welcome to the Retail Tales. And I'm super stoked that you accepted to be on the show today.
I'm a little verklempt, Saurabh. I'm not sure I can, I'm a little emotional about that introduction, but same, brother. You know, you're one of my favorite people, and fashion and retail are one of my favorite topics. So I'm happy to be here.
Thank you, Karla. Really appreciate it. Before we start, let me make a confession. Can I make a confession?
Yes.
Well, of course I can. This is my show. Remember the first time I spoke to you?
I do not.
I do very clearly remember that. I found you quite intimidating. And that's my confession. Oh my God. So much so that I went back and told my wife that I'm going to be in for a ride with this leader who I just spoke with today. It was what, 6 years ago? 6 years ago.
Yeah.
But the more I got to know you, the more I worked with you, I got to know the real you. So, you know, you're a kind, no nonsense type of a leader. And I've learned so much from you over the past, 5-6 years. So thank you so much.
And what did I do that was intimidating? Or was I just being a woman comfortable sitting in her power? I ask that sometimes because I think women get intimidating a lot. I'm not putting you on the spot, but what was intimidating?
I think it was, just the overall point of, hey, this person is meeting me for the first time. What does he need from me? And I was trying to give you some updates of the work that we were doing, and you were like, "What do you need from me?" Like, all right. But it was our first meeting, and we have come a long way.
Don't be wasting my time.
No, it was all good. All right. Let's start our conversation with your journey so far. While I have been a small little part of it, I'd like to start with you telling the listeners about your journey and what you're up to these days.
So my journey thus far, I have spent most of my career in professional services. So I started out, as you mentioned, as a lawyer, doing intellectual property and securities litigation, and also spending about 20% of my time doing pro bono civil rights work. It's always been important to me and my family that we are in our communities and fighting for people who didn't have the same opportunities, right? So when I moved out here, I actively lobbied the firms I worked for so that I would get to be able to spend some time doing pro bono work for the less fortunate. And then moved into Booz Allen Hamilton, a dear friend of mine who you should absolutely interview, Reggie Vanley, called me and said, "We're starting a tech incubator, given that you were doing a lot of IP work in that area. Do you want to come and be part of the tech incubator?" But he sort of had me come work with me. And so I went and did that at Booz Allen Hamilton and loved it. Then there was a .com bubble burst, and I had been traveling back and forth to Germany and Europe. And one of my clients said, we want to open some stores. We want to open some self-worth stores in the US, and it's something you've done before. And in young consultant fashion, I said, how hard could it be?
Of course.
Having done it once in like a C stores for a gas station, I was like, oh, how hard could it be? The answer, as you well know, is extremely and very hard. But
Yeah.
I loved it, loved it. I learned so much that I went to the firm and asked if I could take all things that were not grocery and retail and see if I could grow a business. And they said yes, with a time limit on it. And so I did that, and I never looked back.
Amazing.
That took me I did that for off and on about 18 years at Booz. We sold that business. I went to Google, where I was doing strategy in my ads business and helping with retail strategy and integration of M&A work. And that was fun. It was a good commute, but found that, having one client, different questions, ultimately will become one question, which is the people and the client and the org and how it's going to change. And decided that I really wanted to go back to sort of looking at a question across multiple scenarios, multiple clients, and see how things like operating model, capability, people, L&D change the outcomes, even if the question stays the same. And that's when I came to Deloitte. And recently left. I was in that capacity. I was global luxury apparel and fashion leader for Deloitte for 5 years, which was an amazing experience. I had to meet amazing people and build some amazing and wonderful tools that, if you're doing it right, will outlast you. I think we had great client impact, but as you know, you and I spent probably the better half of the last 2 years looking at all things AI in retail and fashion, both independently and together. And sort of that's where my passion is taking me these days, in both board work and advisory work, is really that intersection of AI, GenAI, fashion, and retail.
And how about your current role? How about Savage and Fenny? And by the way, for the people who don't know, Savage and Fenny is Rihanna's brand.
One of her brands.
One of her brands.
Yes. So Rihanna is an amazing Black woman entrepreneur and singer, who has created some really lasting and meaningful brands that really resonate with consumers. Fenty and Fenty Hair being her cosmetics and wellness and hair products brand. Savage X being her brand, focused on sportswear, leisure wear, and lingerie. And I serve as outside board director of Savage X Fenty. It's privately owned. So Fenty being owned by LVMH, Savage X is still privately owned. And in that role, very different than is sort of being operational, right? Your oversight and governance. And so we do things like, help the CEO with her strategic plan, make sure that she has the resources that she needs, make sure that we're understanding the state of the business, that we're growing the business in a way that creates increased value for the investors, and ultimately toward an exit for maximum shareholder value.
Impressive written all over it. And I can only imagine you continue to get to be the rock star that you are in the fashion retail world.
I got opinions, that's for sure. And I do express them, but I think it's a great group of folks. It's a great group of leaders, both industry and on the PE and VC side. So it's an amazing learning experience for me. Every time I go to a board meeting, every time I interact with them, I get to learn new things. And, the one thing I most define myself as is a lifelong learner, right? So it's great to be back in learning mode. And having an opportunity to just, say, what is this? What's going on? What does this mean? What happens when you see X, Y, Z? And they do nothing but generous with their time, explanations, and helping me feel like an intrinsic part of the team.
Yeah, your humility, it's just your humility that you're calling yourself a learner, but you are one of the most sought after executives in the world of fashion retail. So let me get your thoughts on future of fashion and luxury brands in the world of generative AI. some people argue that generative AI, or AI for that matter, would take the exclusivity away from consumers. The whole notion of wearing something exclusive, something unique, something, most importantly, something original would go away with designs generated by generative AI. What are your thoughts about that argument?
Well, I think it's the exact opposite, right? Gen AI has the opportunity to make things even more exclusive because you can give it a prompt that says design just two of these.
Mm.
And, I don't think with generative AI, people are going to stop owning their trademarks, their copyrights, and their look and feel of their product, right? And so they may take out some steps, but I think, again, when I did a lot of this work, the art and science and the balance of that art and science is going to remain. And I don't think we're going to move to a day, anytime soon, where you just push a button and it spits out sort of an ultra luxury $10,000 bag. I think, where we're going to see it first in fashion and luxury, it's going to be in some cost cutting and taking some cycle time out. And I always think that's a good thing, right? You're going to be better, smarter, faster, the closer you are to market. And if Gen AI can help you make decisions closer to market that are still got your brand fingerprints and DNA on them, I think that's just better for all brands. But I don't see anything inherent in Gen AI that would say it can't be exclusive, right? I think when people say that, what they're saying is it would allow you to effectively create a duplicate or a knockoff. But, there are photo identical knockoffs being created today without Gen AI. That you could take into any luxury store or any regular store, and no one would be able to tell the difference. Sometimes not even, the designers themselves or the folks that made them. And I think Gen AI may make those better, but that's happening already. So there's nothing, I think, we always go to the parade of horribles when something new happens around. And it's not that I am Pollyanna. I think there are some risks with Gen AI done wrong. But I think with Gen AI done right, I don't lose a lot of sleep thinking that it will take exclusivity out of the market. And also, I would tell you that that's a small part of the market. Those players in the ultra high luxury, ultra exclusive part of the market have always been very good at making sure that they create and keep that value because that's what their consumers like. And so they may be, last to use Gen AI, but I don't think it's going to mean that, scarcity, which is what controls exclusivity, is not a Gen AI issue, right? You can create something through Gen AI and choose to make fewer of them, and I think that's a choice.
Fair enough. I know you're also very passionate about the designer community, whether, apparel design, shoe design, jewelry design, whatnot. And the designer community has faced, in recent years, and has faced several challenges ranging from the economic pressures to the rapid changes in consumer behavior influenced by overall technology advancements. And this community continues to find it increasingly difficult to balance creativity with commercial viability. And it's even more so in the age of generative AI. What's your perspective on this challenge faced by the designer community from that perspective?
I think when we talk about sort of big D and little d design, right? I think the challenge for designers is going to be, and I think it's both a challenge and an opportunity for designers to take away. We had a dear friend, you and I in common, who talked about the drudgery work of design. And I think sometimes people think of designers and that they're just sitting in a corner, with a big notebook, painting with a feather, and then it comes out. There's a lot of design work that is drudgery work that is repeated every cycle. I think Gen AI taking those things away takes nothing away from designers. What we've seen today, and it's getting better, is that Gen AI and AI are very good at producing something from something, right? You feed it a lot of information and it produces something else. I think great designers are producing something where nothing exists, right? And Gen AI isn't quite there yet. right? And partially the reason I've always loved specialty, the reason I always loved fashion is there is a great balance between art and science. And I don't think the science is quite there yet to replace the art. Now, will it get there? Eventually. But I think the things, the demise of the designer, I think, are greatly exaggerated. I think the demise of the parts of design work that could be drudgery, I think designers would welcome that, right? It frees up more time for them to really focus on their consumer, focus on designs that are going to blow him or her away. Yeah. And the things that, how much design does a new Ringer white t-shirt need? Probably not a lot.
Yeah.
And GenAI can probably learn what any individual brand's version of that t-shirt looks like and needs to look and feel like, and generate some versions of it based on kind of some color and pulling some screen scraping of what they're seeing in streetscapes all over the world. That's not the same thing as coming up with something completely new.
Yeah.
And that people are excited about, or setting a trend, or deciding that, we're going to go to cutouts and we're going to mix length maxi mid dresses, right? I mean, those are design aesthetic choices. And I think good designers, like good engineers, are good at seeing around corners. And AI is predictive, but only to a point. And that's why it's so much better. You see so much more robustness in AI in highly regulated industries like pharma, or where there's a lot of data to ingest and a lot of rules. And so it can put those together and significantly reduce sort of the R&D cycles or things that take a lot of data, because, there are a lot of rules. Fashion has very few rules. And I think AI it's going to take a while before they realize that, it's a rule-based system and prompts, right?
Yeah.
And right now, you and I played around with it. If you say, I want it sheer but opaque, right? Those are two contradictory things that any designer I know could hand sketch something that was both sheer and opaque, right? In lines, it feels like it's a lot of skin, but actually you're particularly covered up. I don't think AI could do that. AI can do some fun things, like the Adobe dress that changes color with a touch of your phone. And that's cool. It's a gimmick, but some of the things, if I look at the Met Gala this year, some of the designs that we saw, are pure creation and imagination. And I don't think AI is there yet.
Yeah. Well, you did speak about the drudgery aspect of it and then the creativity side of things as well. With the use of AI and generative AI, becoming more and more prominent in creative industries, it not only streamlines the design process, the drudgery that you were talking about, but it also introduces the innovative concepts, the creativity aspect of it. And I think that is a giant step in the right direction for the overall fashion and luxury industry now.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of things that don't need to be in there, right? That they're just vestigial to what we used to think design was. Right. And so I think having the Pantone color book available at your fingertips at any time would be amazing. The ability to use GenAI to mix two colors to create a custom color without physically having to do that in a factory would be, save a ton of time. The ability to look at every fabric you've ever used, and not only that, every fabric that one could use, in a way that you could see the flow and what it would look like on a model. And so you don't have to do as much samples. All of those things would be hugely beneficial to designers.
Got it. Karla, in my introduction, I said you are a straight shooter. So in that spirit, let me ask you this. In your view, what is one current market trend within the fashion and luxury industry that you believe is over-exaggerated? And then another one that you wish gets more visibility and airtime, and obviously your reasons for both.
I think the demise of in-person offline shopping, while declining, is not dead. And I think we like to talk about it as Nobody goes to stores, nobody goes to malls. Clearly, people who say that don't have teenage daughters like I do. Now, would I say that they look for their looks on Instagram and social and Snapchat and TikTok? Absolutely. But, they do go to malls. They hang out there. They go to stores, right? It's prom season here. I don't know one kid that was not spending time in a store, with a pile of dresses trying them on. Does that mean they also don't have a pile of dresses coming to their house to try on as well? Absolutely. But I think, we have been talking about, the death of the store for the last 5 years. And certainly there's been a lot of retraction, and COVID did not do physical retail any favors. But I think physical retail is far from dead. I think it's going to be, we talk about all the time, all about omni, right? We're moving to the place where she wants it, where she wants it, when she wants it. And that's what full omni is. But sometimes where that is next to the Starbucks where I go in and get my coffee.
Fair. Then how about a trend which is underrated or under the radar, which should get spoken about or should get more visibility?
Yeah, I think one that I've been pushing for a while, but one that we're starting to see is just the rise of brands looking for other markets where they can sell their goods. It has always been sort of North America, Europe, and, sort of Asia writ large market. And then I think in the last, decade or so, we saw the rise of China as a huge consumer, both of luxury goods, but just sort of brands, the consumer brands. I think now we're starting to see that brands are looking at places like India, Africa, and Latin America, not only as places where they make goods, but where they're actively targeting consumers as wealth in those regions grow, as people gain wealth here and either go back to their countries of origin on purpose because they want to give back to their community. We see the rise of Africa Fashion Week and some amazing designs coming out of there, India Fashion Weeks. But I just think the globality of the industry, both in terms of the influences and the desire to think of those countries as having consumers that are important and get marketed to as important consumers is one that I think has been slowly coming. And then now we're seeing it almost everywhere.
Yeah. No, you're right. When some of the clients out there are also making deliberate and conscious efforts in targeting, the customer base in countries like India and China, more from a consumer perspective. So yeah, you're right. Let me ask you something which is a little bit more philosophical. In one of the previous episodes, I asked one of my guests the same question. So I'm going to put this out to you too. What are your hopes and wishes for AI and generative AI? And if you can tie it back to the retail fashion, that'll be amazing.
I tend to confine my hopes and wishes for actual human beings. But I will tell you where I think, Gen AI can be for good or for ill. I think AI and Gen AI have provided an amazing opportunity, particularly in the fashion industry, around, cutting out cycles that add to waste of time, waste of resources, waste of water, waste of material, right? We talk about, and we have been talking about sustainability for a long time, but the processes and the way we produce products are inconsistent with that. And not because brands are bad, it's just because, there wasn't a very good way of having an accurate idea of what the finished good would look like. I think Gen AI, provides the opportunity to be able to see what the finished good is going to look like in a way that you have sense that this is going to be a hit, right? You can't pick a hit, but you didn't have to get 8 samples. You didn't have to change fabrics. You didn't have to, resketch and sketch, right? I think, it's going to take what we've seen digital design tools be able to do and sort of strap a rocket to it. And I just think that we'll see design get better. We'll see sustainability get better. We will, be able to see, less waste overall in the system. And I think that's a good thing.
Giant steps in the right direction.
Yeah. I guess you asked me a fear too. I think the fear is the flip side of that, right? I think people lament, like the team-uization of fashion, right? I think unless we're careful about it, the ability of GenAI to actually generate so many different options and so many different varieties and make them cheaply if you just like poke a button and do it could lead to less sustainable models, right? And I think it's always a downfall to say that, that is what people want. I think if you ask real people what they would like is to be fashionable, to have new items that they can choose from, but they would like them to be sustainably made. And part of that sustainable making is, taking some of these cycle times and digitizing some things that don't need to be on paper. And so I think, both the fear and what it could do and what it could unlock can be hand in hand. But I think, history has shown, we get out of sync sometimes with technology, but ultimately we manage to get back into sync. I think the studies now when people are saying, hey, full screen time all the time are not great for kids, but screens have done amazing things for education and bilingual education and letting people travel, letting kids learn about cultures that aren't their own, right? But it's a balance. And we're at the early stages of technology, and we tend to be binary at the early stages of technology. It is all feast or all famine. I think we will look back and it will be, we created amazing tools that do amazing things, but in service of their users and not, the other way around.
Pearls of wisdom is all I can say of, your thoughts on the hopes and fears. So thank you for sharing. I can go on and on and on and on picking your brain, but we are coming close to the end of this episode. But before we wrap up, is there any advice that you'd like to give your fashion retail executive peer group or to someone who may be just starting out in fashion retail or maybe both?
Yeah, I would think about, and this is a bit, we talked about Gen AI, and you and I laughed about this on many a late night plane ride, is you don't go from, sketching on paper to Gen AI overnight, right? You really have to think about making your business ready for it, right? Which means, there's very specific ways that you want to have data kept to use Gen AI. There's very specific processes that will make it better or worse if you add Gen AI into it. Not everything can be Gen AI, right?
Not everything should
and that they should be, right? Now they should be. So I would say, for those starting out, and particularly those at scale, like folks starting out, always have the benefit of learning from the people who do it at scale, right? So they always start a little bit closer to second base. Because they can look at what the big players are doing. But I would say, rather than round up all your executive leadership team and say, like, well, we got to get some AI in here right now. I think it's more like, how are we thinking about how we are an AI-enabled organization? And what does that mean for our organization, right? There may be an organization that you're like, it doesn't mean that much for us. I think it eventually will touch all types of businesses in all sectors.
Yeah.
But, I think you don't get there by having an idea today and getting there tomorrow. I think it's really sort of, what is your roadmap of being AI enabled? What does AI enabled really mean for your organization? And, how you're going to get there. And it's some of it, the sexy stuff is to push a button and get a beautiful dress, right? But the amount of work in data cleanup and understanding, what your factory partners can do and understanding what has to be in place, the unsexy stuff is got to be in place, right? And so spend some time thinking about your business enablers, because those are the things that are going to help you unlock the value of AI. Like just putting AI on, if you have a bad car that has bad wheels and the steering column is broken, and you put a Maserati engine in it, still a bad car, right?
Love that analogy.
Yeah. AI is not going to solve all of the problems that you've ignored. It's just going to make them worse in some ways. And if you wanted to make it better, you've got to sort of address some of the unsexy operating model and org and business functional area issues.
And data and foundational capabilities.
Data foundational capabilities.
Well, that was as epic as I expected it to be. So thank you for being on the show today, Karla. And thank you for sharing your insights, your thoughts with me and the listeners. Always a pleasure talking to you and listening to your perspectives.
Yeah, I'm a huge fan. If you could see me now, people, like and subscribe. It's an awesome show.
Thank you so much, Karla.
Thanks.
For the folks who are interested in learning more and looking to get connected with Karla or looking to follow her, please reach out to her on LinkedIn. And with that, it's a wrap on this episode of Retail Tales. Thank you for listening. Here's me, Saurabh, signing off. If you like the content you heard Karla, don't forget to follow this show and keep learning a thing or two about retail AI. You can follow us on LinkedIn and subscribe to this show on Spotify or Apple. Join me in the next episode of the Retail Tales, a show which is exclusively focused on exploring all things AI across the retail value chain. Until then, stay safe, stay healthy, and stay curious.